Hello, everybody, to another episode of the 14 Degree Dialogue where strategies meet direction. We have an amazing guest today, really amazing, particularly to me that I'm a technical person. We have Gireesh Kumar. He's a visionary leader specializing in quantum safe migration and post quantum cryptography. My God, these big words, and now we're going to explain to everybody what they mean. He has a deep expertise spanning quantum computing, including the IBM Quiz Kit. AI, ML, IoT, and embedded system. He transformed cutting-edge research into practical market-ready solution. So practically, Gairish has proven track record managing PNS, software product lifecycle, and IP commercialization, steering unified go-to-market strategies across the global market. Is a known leadership in developing quantum communication, sensing, computing, offering position him at the forefront of the quantum revolution, driving innovative business model and forging strategic partnership worldwide. So, welcome, Gairish, to the 14 Degree Dialogue.
Thank you so much, Roberto. I think that was a lot of introduction. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, there is a lot of complex word that let's start with understanding quantum computing for everybody. What exactly is quantum computing and why it does it evoke both a serious concern and a groundbreaking excitement?
Sure. Yeah. So as you can see, yes, in the recent past, there's a lot of kind of a talk around quantum computing and quantum technologies as such. So, in principle, quantum technologies, are more precisely quantum computing, works on the principles of quantum mechanics. So, it leverages the quantum mechanical principles, most importantly, some keywords like superposition, entanglement, interference, those kind of important properties which exist at the atomic and subatomic particle levels, which we will leverage to solve some kind of highly intractable problems. Today, with the classical computers, we'll be able to solve using quantum computers. So the kind of use cases include like predominantly in the domain of optimization, simulation, anything around the nature simulation, and anything around machine learning, and also to some extent wherever there is a high computational complexity problems, it helps. It doesn't mean that will quantum computers will replace the existing classical computers, but they are specifically targeted for special complex problems where computation complexity is high.
Okay, so practically everybody know bits and bytes that makes today computer systems. So really is down there the differences. So where a bit is either one or zero, and this is the base of all the information we run in our computer. I think what is called qubits for quantum computer can be many different things. It's not just one or zero, right? It's something like that.
Yes. So I think the best way to look at it is, yes, bits, as we understand, it's a zero and one, and it will stay in one of the states. You don't see them at any other formats. So if I have, if we'll say 10 bits, total number of values I can represent is 1024, 1024 values I can represent. So at any point of time, you will have one value of that. In the qubit domain, so it is a state. Actually, it's a kind of a state represented by some kind of a complex numbers. But to make it simple, so you can imagine a sphere. If you take north pole as 1 and south pole as 0, in a bits world, that is 1 and 0 is the only two states. But in a qubit domain, it is a point on the surface of that sphere. So you can imagine the infinite possibilities of that. But what we take is we map it back to 0 and 1 with the different probabilities. So that's important. So it is a probabilistic approach to this. Uh, because of that representation, which we call superposition, which I was referring earlier, which will help you to represent more number of values with the different probabilities. For example, if I have same 10 qubits, I can represent 1024 values at a different probabilities. So that's the value of superposition. So as the number of qubits increases, the kind of things you can process gets exponentially increased.
Exponential. Okay, it's very interesting. Why some people is worried about quantum computing and some people is excited, or there is this mixed kind of feeling?
Yeah, it depends on which side you fall in. So basically, it is a kind of a superpower one will get, right. So you'll be able to solve some of the intractable problems even for a supercomputer. So what are the simulations we want for a drug molecule discovery, or some, in finance optimization, portfolio optimization, or a risk assessment, anything of that kind, which will significantly push the boundaries, especially in the science side, the simulation, material science simulation side. It really push the boundaries of what we are doing today. But this significant power comes with kind of a side effect. That's where the people who are concerned is about the kind of cryptography what we are using today, especially asymmetric cryptography, where the like examples of RSA, ACC, Diffie-Hellman, where it depends on the mathematical complexity. So if we take RSA, it is depends on prime factorization to large prime numbers. If I multiply, it's easy, but factorizing that back, even if we give it large supercomputer, a 2048 RSA kind of factorizing is almost impossible. It takes thousands of years. But because of one algorithm called Shor's algorithm, which got more or less created almost a few decades back, 1994, by Shor. So this enables kind of factorizing that large prime factorization can be done in significantly shorter period of time. It's in few minutes, and as it improves, it might be even better. So that's where the concern starts. So all your secured communications, digital signatures, certificates, everything which is dependent on including public key infrastructure, dependent on this asymmetric cryptography, is vulnerable. So the trust on the systems or digital systems can be questioned.
So, in fact, I was always thinking this security based on the impossibility or long time to calculate the potential way to break the security seems like a security by obfuscation a little bit because, it's not an absolute security. It's a security because it would take thousands of years to find a way to break it. But found a solution to speed up the process. This thing is not secure anymore. In effect, we are basing a lot of aspect of the security in the systems for where worldwide we operate in many things that they tend to be even more secure than the classic username and password, because with cryptographic signature we are actually potentially exposing all these things to the weakness of a computer that can elaborate this sort of calculation way faster than regular computers. That's why potentially you're saying, quantum will be an additional chip in a normal computer, because those kind of calculation will be passed to that processor, let's say, and the rest of calculation. A quantum computer that only does quantum computing cannot run a flight simulator, I don't know, or another game, because some processor will be more slow than a normal processor, or I'm wrong.
Yeah, I think you can today the quantum computers what we have is basically based on few technology domains like superconducting, ion trap, and photonics, cold atoms, and various of them. Most of the access to these quantum computers is on cloud. So
Can
till I
be
think
rented
it will
as
take
a.
time. Yeah, we don't see that becoming like a GPU anytime
Okay.
soon. At least it will take a lot more time. So most of that what we'll access today is over cloud, or if you have to buy, you can spend few millions and of course buy the current one. So that's how we can use. Of course, they will coexist. There will be GPUs, there will be CPUs, there will be QPUs, quantum processors.
Okay, fantastic.
Depending on the problem, depending on the use case, you may have to distribute that workload appropriately so that you get best out of each computing paradigm.
In fact, this means a more government actor kind of things will be interested in the technology before it comes consumer ready. We are in a moment where there is this race to dominance in terms of artificial intelligence. Different countries are trying to achieving AGI, like super intelligence. And government are putting a lot of funds. Europe did that. Trump has been the first to put $500 billion in. At least that was the plan. Is the plan, and so I'm heard many more countries. Is this similar things for quantum computing? How might the influence the national digital infrastructure when it comes to countering emerging threats from other countries that will achieve the power to break encryptions, for example?
True. I think that's a very good observation. Is even in quantum, the concept of quantum sovereignty as a concept is being discussed quite significantly. Most of the major countries have one or the other quantum, technology related program, spending billions already. US has allocated few billions. UK, France, Germany. all these countries and China. So they have spent good amount of or allocated few billions of either dollars or euros there, because of if you miss this train, I think there is a big possibility of major economic opportunity will be lost. And other one is your national security related, especially for your critical infrastructures and defense related ones. What whoever is the enemy country has this power, and you are not at least one on economic front. If you are not up to the speed, and you will not be competitive, and if you don't have enough defensive technologies, then your systems are vulnerable. So that makes every country, most of these countries have is some one or the other national quantum programs, and they have allocated significant kind of resources around this, and they're actually looking at starting research programs, skill building programs, because this is a very kind of a niche skill. One has to build this capability and skill across the domains. So yes, you are seeing this kind of national interest in this technology.
Okay, and then another level, okay, consider government can invest a serious amount of money. Some large company can probably invest a serious large of money because there are companies that have more budget than countries in this moment in history. But for the regular company, let's say is a medium to large enterprise that are there for sure, the investment on research and implementation, quantum computing is out of reach. But the fact that the quantum computing become a reality, what are, in practical terms, so beside the definition of asynchronous cryptography, let's say, etc., on practical terms, what the company does, they use a cryptography that can be broken by quantum.
Yeah. So one on the quantum computing application side, there are certain use cases where if it is relevant to your industry, you have to identify those use cases. For each industry, there is a good number of identified use cases. You can start exploring and see how it helps you to solve those problems better than classical ones, or if some of the problems which are not even solved using classical approaches, are there any such computational challenges you can adopt. That's on the computing application side of it, the benefit of it. The other side is the cryptography threat. How do you manage this threat? How do you address this threat? Is the another more near-term issue to be concerned about before we get major useful use cases. So how do we approach this? Is about understanding your system. So there are solutions. It's not that there are no solutions today. At least the industry has worked, and there are two solutions predominantly being considered for this addressing this quantum threat. One is something called post quantum cryptography, which is based on the mathematical complexity problems and still in the world of bits in the classical domain. But these algorithms are considered to be safe against both classical and quantum computers. So the second approach is based on something called quantum key distribution, QKD. It is based on quantum mechanical principles where it helps you to exchange the secret keys or information between the two parties and use that for further encrypted communication. Though theoretically that's a most secure form of communication, but there are some challenges, especially there is some further research needs to be done, and it needs to become more a commercial usage kind of technology. So because of that, kind of current challenges, most of the countries, especially US and even in Europe, have kind of given recommendations saying that you should adopt PQC to start with, post quantum cryptography,
Yeah.
and then look at QKD.
My question is also just for the audience to understand on practical terms. Where is the risk of an encryption being broken? Because many people maybe send an email connected to VPN to the office from home, and they are not really aware that there is an encryption happening to protect the data. There are, for example, one big case that is very close to us when you have a GCC implemented in a remote country and there is a full connection so that it's like they are in the local network when they work with the company, and this connection is encrypted, right? So the same way there are aspect of a signature, other things that the company regularly use now. So I would like you to give me some practical example on what is that are, for example, things that can happen to the insurance, to the bank, to the, whatever other regular company that, they hear this thing, but thinks is all aliens to them. It doesn't belong to them, but it is something that probably may concern them as well when they understand what it's about.
Yes, yes. In fact, the cryptography exists in almost most of the digital systems what we have today. Just to give a simple, ready example. So, when you access any bank, right? So you use a secure communications. You trust that connection that nobody will is kind of seeing your passwords. Nobody is seeing how much your money transferring, and you believe that you trust that whatever the amount of money you transfer, are you someone getting transferred to, that gets worked and nothing, no major concerns. But imagine a situation where you are you enter a part. When you access that, you get authentication. First you authenticate yourself, and also you need to be sure that whatever the website the application you are using and trying to talk to that server actually belongs to that bank actually. So if for what happens if someone spoofs it, right? So authentication, that first one is you authenticate yourself, so ensuring that both are who claim it to be. The second one is something called certificates are there. So when we access a website of a bank website through our browser, there is actually a certificate, a verification mechanism that goes behind the or TLS protocol or security protocol, which uses certificates, digital certificates, which verifies the server which claims to be belongs to that bank is actually belongs to that bank. Otherwise, you might log into some other place and you give away all your information, and that server or some that person can make use of your password and all the authentication information. Then actually there is secured key exchange. So you use a secured communication mechanism so that nothing is revealed on the internet, and that will happen. And afterwards, of course, the integrity, whatever you say, I want to transfer 1,000 euros, then it has to be 1,000 euros. It shouldn't change over when you are transferring over the internet. The data is moving from your machine to the server. So all these four things are secured today over TLS. But like this, you will have many use cases, anything around authentication, anything around the public key infrastructure. When I say public key infrastructure, all these digital certificates concepts and the encrypted communication, secured communication aspects are vulnerable. So imagine everywhere we are using this. It can be a device, identity related things. Whenever you're updating the software on your mobile, there is secured update happens. And because of these reasons, every organization will have thousands of, especially medium to large organizations, will have thousands of applications and scenarios where you are using this kind of cryptography. Key point to note is most kind of vulnerable cryptography type is asymmetric cryptography, or we also call public key kind of encryption cryptography. Not the other one, second one, which is a symmetric key cryptography. It is not as vulnerable as asymmetric key cryptography. So practically, wherever you can imagine authentication, wherever you imagine secured communications, wherever you're looking at certificates and digital signatures, especially the documents you signed today and tomorrow I just change that and now I can repudiate that. Those kind of things are all use cases of this threat.
So what I see, for example, many government release chip for cryptographic signature, which are based on both certificates and public key, private key, and those means that somebody can sign in your behalf, maybe if they have the power of quantum computing. At the same time, if there is an authentication between two parties and that can be broken easily, it can be built as a man in the middle. If the communication is between the user and the server, a malicious actor can sit in the middle, pretend to be the server for the user, pretend to be the user for the server, and actually being able even to modify the information that supposedly go through. That is for large companies that rely on this sort of infrastructure on a daily basis to run their businesses. But
Yes.
they have the need of secrecy for patents, innovation, and other things, or for a question of privacy. So they should be looking at consulting probably to understand, first of all, how at risk their system is, and discover if it's a risk or not, to decide for the
Yes.
next step in how to modify or change things. This is something important. I do recall that even before quantum computing, some like MD5, there was a kind of signature hashing system in cryptography has been considered no more secure because it was easy to create an item that would come out with the same hash. In this way means that all this realm of cryptography is really based on the difficulty of calculation in terms of security, which means that the more powerful computers are coming out, more weak the security of this kind of cryptography in a certain way become. Quantum computing representing a step that is like a miles long compared to the regular steps in terms of capacity of elaboration really destroys a lot of systems that were considered very, very secure for many years to come. So this is, I think, what is going to be scary. Already now we can rent quantum computing elaboration online, but probably is being monitored. So you need to KYC before renting this thing. As soon as it's at the end of a criminal organization to actually use it locally, indistinguishably, if the people that don't update their way of work will be at very high risk and putting their own client and user at high risk, most of all, which is the
Yes.
ugly thing because when it comes to authentication, as you were, But so this make me think: is there like government regulation that are coming up? I'm Italian and I want to cry when I think about Italy because we arrived to this thing. We think about pizza and Bella Vita, and we don't think about those risks that come in place. But thank God we stay under the European government that probably is doing something. What are the government takes in terms of regulation to force somehow company in updating their system to be ready for the quantum era?
Yeah. Okay. So I think there are globally there are different approaches to this. I would look at it one from real mandate clear. Law has been passed in US in 2022 December. There is a law actually mandating all the federal systems, basically all the government systems, need to be upgraded to this new cryptography, it's the quantum safe cryptography, by 2035 kind of a thing. And there is another mandate from NSA, CNSA, commercial NSA in US for national security systems with even more clear timelines. By 2020, you should start having post-quantum cryptography solutions for certain use cases like software update use cases. But from starting from 2025, finish the whole migration by 2033.
Sorry if you say something, I interrupt you because you said something very, very important that people don't realize. When you install an application in your computer or in your cell phone, it has a cryptographic signature that guarantee you that this application is not being modified with spyware or malware, but it's actually the original from the developer, unless the developer put the spyware inside themselves. This can be easily faked, means that you can find the application with a signature that seems authentic, but is actually being broken, and the software that you're downloading. And this many times come from governments aspect. Let's think, like a way of going to spy mass surveillance. We heard from Edward Snowden's the method that were used in achieving mass surveillance. And this is really the going through application that everybody trusts is a big challenge. Sorry, but this is an important thing that many people need to understand when it comes to the risk of
Yes.
breaking a signature.
Yeah, yeah. In fact, so software update is that's the reason the first use case
Mm.
as part of the CNSA where this has to be considered. This software update is not just for people. Even the critical infrastructures. When the software update happens for your electric grid, for example, if I insert some kind of a malware, I can trigger that malware anytime I want, and I can collapse the whole grid. Just imagine the impact to the economy and all that. So that's okay. Yeah. So when US has that kind of regulatory clear push for the all the government and public related infrastructure, but for private organizations, they have not mandated with a clear timelines, not a kind of a compliance kind of a thing. But it's more about they recommend that these are the guidelines. Please follow the same process. Other point to note is I'll come back to this. Like NIST, which is a standards body in US, which is working on this. We'll get into the details of that. But in US and Europe, clearly there are guidelines and recommendations to move towards prepare and move towards quantum safe cryptography. But it's not like clear minded. But there is a recommendations and guidelines as well. And even in APAC side, if you look at Singapore's now monetary authority, advisory MAS in Singapore has given preparedness kind of a directive. It's more a recommendation and guidelines they have given for all the financial institutions to get prepared for this quantum safe cryptography. And very recently, this was passed almost 1 year back. But very recently, just in the last month, a country like Israel, the bank authority there have given directive saying that all the banks, that too at a board level and executive level, to get prepared for this quantum safe migration with clear milestones. Like next 1 year, you have to prepare by all these things. It includes the
Mm.
skill building, discovery of all the cryptography being used, and also come up with a plan for migration, that kind of stuff. So it varies from the clear mandate to the kind of a guideline or a recommendation thing. So each country has its own approach to this, but everyone understands and recognizes the threat, but approach is little different. If you look at the industries, some industries are more active compared to other industries, like
Mm.
finance institutions. There are quite a few active organizations, but others are not so.
Yeah, I believe there are industries that they don't even understand that they are potential, victim of something like that. Sometimes people use application in their system in full faith of what they're using. I drive a car. I don't need to be an expert on the engine of my car. So for the same reason, some industry they use systems thinking that everything is okay because pretty much everything is delegated to those that apply it. So sometimes probably at the moment I understand these things. So the understanding of quantum mechanics in terms of computing is full. The implementation, the actual thing is on the road, so maybe happen sooner, but there is like 10 years before being seriously concerned that something can happen. The step for preparing oneself to this moment should be better to be started soon than later, because there is no such innovation that would change the way to get prepared. The way to get prepared is the same. It's just the importance to be there before the things may happen. So probably at the moment is a good step for a company to get a consulting, but even a regulator probably need to understand how to start working on the regulations for protecting company and citizens. Consulting regulator, consulting company in just term of understand if their system is potentially a risk, and then use the next few years available in order to do the practical step of protecting the infrastructures in a proper manner.
Yeah. So actually, this is where most of the organizations need to start looking at it. It's a kind of a long process. It's not a small, simple activity. The new
Mm.
cryptography, which is a standards NAST, which is kind of working from last almost 9 years now. 2015, they have started this process, and now just we have three standards being published already. So you expect more such algorithms like MLChem, MLDSA, and a couple of them are based on lattice based ones and one based on hashing. So you need to start adopting those cryptography for into your systems. The key point is, do you know where all you are using the vulnerable cryptography,
Uh,
which all the applications you have this, and what is the level of impact as an organization I have from this threat, from this risk. I need to understand this. So it's a process. So the way we look at this is, you can compare somewhat like Y2K problem, but
exactly, I was thinking exactly the same thing. This reminds me to the Y2K so much that it's something that at the end people were like, "Who was useless?" No, actually, it was useful. That's because people did things that
exactly.
nothing happened later. So
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, in fact, this is more uncertain. There was a clear deadline in time for Y2K, and you knew the problem, and you the solution was very simple, straightforward. But here, that's not the case. The similarities end there. It sounds similar to Y2K, and you have to look at every system and see where we are using vulnerable cryptography and upgrade. But the differences starts significantly, because the kind of cryptography what you are using today will have a variations of it. You might be using RSA with a different security levels, ECC at a different security levels, DFI at a different combinations, on different security protocols, applications, use cases, PKI, digital signatures. You need to collect information about all these cryptography artifacts and see which are vulnerable, which are not vulnerable to this. On top of it, are you ready to do migration for all and everything? It will need a lot of resources, significant human resource, money, and time. Rather, you need to prioritize the systems. Which are those ones? So that's where you need to understand what is the impact for my organization because of this threat. Do a risk assessment. So try to understand at a high level, at least at a high level, prepare yourself, do this risk assessment, and see, okay, I have these 1,000 systems, out of which 300 systems are business critical. They carry a kind of a data which is high value, sensitive data, and these systems need to exist for next 5 years, 10 years, or decades. So those are the ones you need to prioritize. There could be some systems which are more internal, very transactional, may not carry high value or more. Those kind of things you can kind of reduce the priority. It's also possible that some systems might be going through a digital transformation. Like, you don't have to worry about those systems, that rather look at the next version of those systems. So all these things, if you understand, you are in a better position to look at your organization and address this threat more effectively. That would mean you need to go through this preparation phase. So do a basic risk assessment, prioritize those systems where it matters most to you, and allocate your resources accordingly. And then do a detailed deep dive of something called cryptography discovery. Basically, you look at all the applications, all the systems, and start collecting cryptography information about these applications, what kind of cryptography is used, in what kind of protocols are there, and what kind of systems are there. All the cryptography artifacts, HSMs, KMS, certificates, signatures, protocols, algorithms, all this information you collect, and then look at the assessment of them. What kind of vulnerability they have because of the quantum computing. Then you do the planning, then actual migration, road mapping, all that will come. This preparation is what is essential today. Even if you are not, if you say, anyway, quantum computers are so many years away, but if you don't prepare yourself, then you are will be in a rush. Especially by 2030, NIST has said that they will deprecate the current encryption by 2035. This
It's
is
only 5 years from now, but it doesn't. It
exactly.
sounds like a number in the future, but it's not
Yes.
so much in the future. Hey, thank you very much. And I think really for every company, from the front end layer contact with their client to the basement of data in their server that may be archived many years ago and kept there, yes, to be reviewed, everything in order to be safe. Can be the opportunity also to review some procedures. And incredibly, today there are websites that when you want to reset the password, they send you in clear the old password. That means they don't even keep the password hash. So it's a good moment to review all these things. You will need somebody like Gireesh Kumar to come there and consult you. If you want to set up like a competence center, you know that the 14 degree Asmuth Advisory is the place to go for getting a competence center, a GCC that can help your company do the migrations. We work together with Gireesh as well. So we are in good hands when it comes to quantum cryptography migration. So thank you very much for staying with us, Gairish. It's been a pleasant conversation. I would have gone ahead for hours because it's some topic that I really love. But that's your amazing contribution for informing the industry of what is to come when it comes to this. Thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this.